So I'm Kyja Eden. I'm the editor of Captus, and I'm here with the cinematographer Owen Elkins, and we're going to take a deeper dive into the production of Captus and just get to know each other a little bit more. So before we discuss Captus as the film, I want to know what got you into film and more specifically cinematography.
Right, so sort of to take it back to where it all sort of started. So my sort of liking to film almost came from, I suppose, watching loads of films naturally when you were younger as a kid. But like my main inspiration is George Lucas, the director. He basically, and the Star Wars films basically, because he like just captured like my imagination when I was a kid, and like those films just like blew me away pretty much of what you can do, just sort of like in terms of film and going off into like another world and that kind of thing. So that's sort of what, as a child, like captured my imagination and made me want to go, oh, like maybe I could do something like that. So that's sort of where my like sort of how I got involved with like a love of film. But I suppose in terms of cinematography, I studied photography at GCSE level, and also I wanted to do a degree in it, in not, well, something along those lines, but I was more interested in film as it was. um so then, yeah, I just sort of naturally sort of rolled into this position of I wanted to go into film because I did love films. So I suppose I didn't really know what else I sort of wanted to do, and I, because I love films and wanted to make films, I was so interested in how they're all made and, you know, directed and that kind of thing. I just really wanted to go down that route, like in my life anyway. So but in terms of cinematography, I suppose, like I said, I've been studying photography since I was in GCS, doing my GCSEs, and I suppose it's sort of like spiraled from there really. And then it was kind of more interesting while I was in uni, sort of being able to take that element of photography and use it for film, and like sort of how like the picture needs to be framed, and what sort of moving components, how they need to all work together to make a like a really good looking image on film. So I like that idea, and that's sort of like why I wanted to do sort of cinematography and directing. But yeah, that's how I sort of fell into that.
Okay, that's very interesting insight. I see you as like you can kind of see you as your director in your cinematography as well. I'd argue. We've worked on quite a few projects together, so we kind of
Mm.
work well together. What would you say, in your opinion, is one of like the most important qualities as a cinematographer?
I suppose for me anyway, I think it's about like knowing what looks, especially as a student, I suppose it's about knowing sort of what looks professional and what's going to sort of look good as well in the edit. Like, I suppose because you eventually, once you have all these storyboards and all these components, it's all got to fit together like a puzzle basically. And you can experiment, which are what I like is you can also experiment with cinematography like while you're actually in production of things. So, you know, you can maybe on set when you're there, maybe things don't quite work out, or things, you know, you didn't really have that, it didn't really go as well as you wanted it in your head. So you can experiment and do different things like that, which I think is nice for cinematography, because then you sort of play around with that sort of thing. But I was going to say that basically it's cinematography. Did you say why it was sort of different? Did you say?
What kind of like qualities do you think makes a good cinematographer?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I was going to say that it's more about looking towards the edit as well and how it's all going to sort of mesh together. But
Yeah, yeah,
again, I suppose what's more important is like I said, experimenting with shots and seeing what looks best, and maybe taking an initial idea and like expanding upon it and making that idea evolve into how can this look more creative, and uh, how can this come from maybe like an audience's point of view, like, or how can it come from like say like an establishing shot, we need to know where we are within the picture. Or I love that idea of playing around with the angles, in terms of like not just angles like camera angles, but also a perspective from in the film, like who are you trying to tell it from? Is it a point of view, or is it more of an audience watching the action? So I love that you can chop and change between that. It's just what makes a good cinematographer, I suppose, is like the variety in which you sort of can work as well. So like you can do anything you want, as long as I feel like you have an understanding as to why you're doing it, and you can make it look professional, I guess.
yeah. So expanding onto that, when actually filming Captus, did you have like a vision when you were filming what the edit would piece together and look like in the end, or was it more just get as many shots and different angles for the editor me to work with in the edit?
That's a good question, actually, because I feel like, honestly, as I've sort of mentioned, it's sort of a bit of both. I think that, like, in terms of almost have to experiment and do more than you'd need to give the editor some variety, which I think is really important, because the edit is what sort of makes a film. Like, you can have all the content you want in the world and the most amazing shots, but it's the edit that makes the film. Like, that's just a fact. So I think definitely giving the editor options is like massively important, and gives them that sort of freedom to play around with like what kind of works. Because I compared cinematography to a puzzle that fits together, but I sort of meant that as the edit, because you can have different pieces and you try and put them together, but if they're the wrong slot, or it's nothing quite works and you haven't filmed enough footage, then it doesn't work as a solid piece. But whether it is you have more footage, then it will work better together for the editor to play around with. But in terms of like a vision, yeah, I suppose the Captus, Liberty, the director, sort of pitched the idea to me as this sort of like psychedelic sort of drug film, and I sort of took what she said on board, and she showed me her inspiration for it. So I just took the challenge of going like, yeah, like, we could do that for sure, like that will be fine. And so we went ahead with it. So yeah, I suppose I did have a vision for it because of her inspiration, and what she had a specific look of how she wanted the film to feel. So yeah, I mean, with that in mind, yeah, I did have a vision of how I wanted it to look and how we played around with it on the day and sort of shot the film in. But I mean, like I said, it's a complete balance, I think, of having a vision and seeing your vision through, and also then giving the editor more options to play with in the editing room.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So when Liberty came to you with the idea, the original idea, was you instantly on board, or did you like not quite get the vision or have any concerns, or was you just straight on board with it, knew exactly like kind of what she wanted to go with
Yeah,
as the director?
to be fair, like, me and Liberty and yourself have worked on quite a lot of projects together, and I think that we do all work well as a team. But no, I think that when Liberty pitched this idea to me, I sort of got it and understood sort of straight away what she was going for. Yeah, sure. Like I say, we experimented on the day with maybe different things that she thought might be better, or I thought might be more interesting, or I mean, even your contribution to like the lights and different things and how it all sort of worked and put together. But no, I sort of understood sort of straight away what she was sort of going for and why we were trying to make this film. But also as well, it was more like, yeah, we all sort of went into that and got it straight away and just sort of just did it. Yeah, but no, I don't think there was any sort of confusion as to what was going on. I think it was a solid vision of what we all had to do. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've worked on quite a lot of projects together. We've kind of
Yeah.
like gravitated towards each other since the beginning of our like film kind of starting the career kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'd say there's an element of that trust between us. We all know, all three of us know kind of like strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that. Would
Yeah.
you agree that also we work so well together because we like get each other's visions quite well? Or would you say it's more to do with like our strengths and weaknesses play off well together? Or is it just an element of both?
That's interesting. Actually, it's interesting you say that. I definitely agree with that. Like, there's an element of trust, I suppose, because with any project, like with any filming project, you have to have a team of people to realize your vision and what you want to film. And if, like you say, if you don't trust those people and you don't think they can get it done, then obviously it just sort of put a worry in the back of your mind, like how are we going to produce this if your team don't back you, basically, or if you feel like you can't trust the people to make what you want to see into a reality. But no, I know this is the boring answer, but I would say it's a bit of both, I suppose, because the trust has to be there for it to work. But also, yeah, I think we do sort of bounce off each other's strengths and weaknesses, because everyone, I feel in the group, everyone is good at something that's very like individual to them. And then when we put it all together, like I say, all the pieces fit sort of together really nicely. It's like everyone has their own individual elements. We put it together and we make a good project for sure. But yeah, no, I definitely say it's an element of both. Like, trust is a massive thing in the production of anything, because otherwise, if you don't have that trust, like I said, it just won't happen, or it won't happen everyone is off to one side wanting to do their own things when it's not following like a single like tunnel vision of a project.
Okay, yeah. So I'd argue that throughout Captus, it kind of like glamorizes the use of drugs. It's very like visually pleasing,
Yeah.
and it's quite easy to like look at, and it draws you in. But then if you like look deeper into the actual meaning of the film, it's very it can go out of control very quickly, which is represents drug use. So as a cinematographer, how did you kind of think about that and draw the audience in and like glamatize it kind of thing?
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting our film Captures because like you said, the glamorization is there in an element, but I also think as well, like as the film progresses within the edit, like it eventually almost tips the opposite way. Like you say, like it goes from the glamorization to then it's sort of like the dark sort of tones of how it can affect people and how it can drastically change like so quickly with drug use and that kind of thing. But in terms of cinematography, yeah, I suppose originally we started off with just the shots of Liberty, just I suppose like going under the effects of drugs as it would be, sort of like going a bit like not as normal and a bit sort of shaky and that kind of thing. But then by sort of the end of the shoot when I was filming it, it was more, and at the start of the shoot, it was on a tripod and we sort of had it fixed in one position. And she was sort of playing around with the idea of, trying to show the effects of drugs. But at the end, I wanted to take the cinematography along with that journey of how drugs can get worse. So I wanted the cinematography to reflect that. So we took it off the tripod and then it was more sort of handheld. And with that, I sort of went up to more close to her face and sort of moved it in very weird and very like jarring sort of, not very like cinematographic angles. Like it wasn't very like very professional in terms. It was more like a sort of crazy sort of mishmash of angles and different sliding slopes of where the camera was going to be. But no, that's what I wanted to reflect, is sort of the journey of that. So going from like it being sort of under control and then it getting sort of out of control. But that's how I think the cinematography sort of is meant to also tell the story as well, because that's what's really important. And that's how I feel like I did that in the cinematography.
Okay, so the diving into more the actual film Captus, what would you say your favorite part about Captus and why?
My favorite part about Captus, I like in the actual final edit, I love when the pace of the film speeds up completely, because that is really sort of the turning point in the film of like, it's almost where the message lies in terms of like, drugs can look to people like, oh, this is amazing. Like all my mates are doing it. Like it's a great thing. Like we can all take it and have a load of fun. But like if you're not careful and if things can go terribly wrong, and that's sort of where the editing is supposed to become sort of more scary and more hostile, and that's supposed to reflect how that feeling is meant to be. But no, that's definitely my favorite part, because that's sort of where the message lies within the film, and sort of how it really does take like a hostile 180 into that sort of road of like it getting very dangerous. But that's my favorite part of the film for sure.
Okay, so moving on to your least favorite part now. I mean, this is quite a controversial thing, as it just makes a lot of controversy because someone might like it, someone might not like it. But what is your opinion? If you could go back and redo it, would there be anything you would change or anything you would make different?
Anything we'd make different? That is interesting. That's an interesting question. I think if I was doing anything different in terms of the filming of Captus, I think it might be, I don't know, maybe if we had like sort of, maybe if we use different sort of lighting techniques as well, just to maybe give it some variety, because I feel like, I don't know, it's sort of a minor sort of change, but maybe if there's something I feel we could add to it, maybe we should have maybe we should have put the lighting in different position, because we had the lights fixed in one area. Sure, it was good to light her face in that way, and to be honest, it kept the shots very consistent, and the chopping and changing the colors I think looked great. But maybe if we played around with the lighting a bit more, maybe that would have given it, when the film gets more hostile, I feel we could have played around with the lighting a bit more to maybe shape Liberty's face in a bit more dark. Or I know the colors are quite dark anyway, but maybe we could have really amped up the shadows and made it a bit more contrasty. I feel that would be the only thing I'd say would be the lighting in the second half. Maybe it would have been more interesting, or maybe it would have been interesting for that to have changed, or maybe within each shot, maybe we could have changed the angle of the lights to make her face almost seem very distorted and very different in each shot. Because if you have the lights coming from all different angles on her face between each shot, I feel like that would have been like a really like cool effect. But also like the lights in it changing from different angles would have sort of created also that feeling of like disorientation, which I suppose is what's meant to happen on drugs as well. So yeah, I think that would have been a nice addition, now I think about it. But no, I did enjoy the film and I like the way it turned out. But I suppose that would be the only thing I could think of that I think we would have done differently if we did it today.
That's interesting you say that, because as the editor, when I was editing the piece, I was thinking, because I was also like doing the lighting and stuff and helping you on set and stuff like that.
Yeah.
As when I was editing, I was thinking, oh, we could have done like this cool shot of had like harsh shadows, and it would have like it would have made it enhance that like trapped feeling with having like big shadows and stuff like that. So it's interesting to say that, because that would be like the one thing that I would improve on as well.
Yeah.
But
I suppose we just didn't. I suppose on the actual day, I just wasn't thinking about. I suppose I was sort of the co-director anyway, but I was sort of like trying
yeah,
to visualize it in my head in terms of cinematography. I didn't even think, because I suppose it was going so well, the shoot. I completely forgot to sort of say like, oh, maybe we should do something different with the lights, because we were already trying to experiment with like the colors and different things were going wrong. But I mean, but yeah, I agree with you that maybe we could have done something with that. But I mean, I'm not too sure.
yeah, because on shoot day, I'd argue it went really well as well. It went quite smoothly. We knew kind of what we were doing,
Yeah.
and it. We weren't there for long either. We were just there for like a couple of hours, and then that was it. So yeah, I agree with we could have probably done a bit more with the lighting, but yeah. So anyone that is wanting to check out the Captus film on the 25th of March, what would you like to say to them?
I suppose go and check it out. Give some opinions on it. I'd like to sort of see what people think of the film. Sort of maybe how it's sort of perceived from an outsider's point of view, because I suppose we haven't really shown it to many people. So I think getting an audience reaction will be interesting to me, because I suppose I haven't sort of had that feedback from it yet. So it'd be interesting to see if the film was effective at what we wanted to sort of portray, like this, how it goes from one sort of extreme to the other. But no, I'd like to hear some people's opinions on it for sure. I'd really like to go see that.
Okay, that's perfect. So Captus out 25th of March, and the trailer actually got released the other day. So if you want to actually get like a bit more of an insight to what we're talking about, the trailer reveals quite a decent amount. I'd say it builds up the hype. You want to Me watching the trailer as the editor anyway. I feel like it doesn't give too much away, but you can check it out on the Twitter, the YouTube accounts. And anyway, so I've been Kyja, the editor of Captus, and I've been interviewing Owen, the cinematographer. And this is just an insight to the actual cinematography of Captus.